All right, Michael, great for being here. Happy you're here, and I'm happy you're going to cook something for us today.
Thank you. I'm excited too. I'm always glad to share food. You know, it's one of the reasons that this business got started was that a lot of people came to me and said, "Well, can you come to my house and show me how to do this?" And that's sort of how this whole thing got started, was to help people do that. I've been in the industry for a number of years, working with a leading natural food supermarket in the area. Actually, they're worldwide, but and then just so working with people, and they're asking me, can I come do this at their home and help them in those kinds of ways. So that's how this got started. I'm very excited. I love cooking. Culinary is my background, but my interest in food has always been tied to an interest in nutrition. So that's how this all kind of ties in.
Well, I'm excited to see how that starts. You know, because of TV, and we're on TV here. We had a little glitch with the heating system of the burner, so we're trying something new. We're trying to improvise.
Yeah.
So we're going to see if this works out. But what do we have here?
Well, what I'm going to make today is a cashew creamed kale with red cabbage and lentils. And kale is one of those things that a lot of people have never tried before, whether it's raw or cooked. Or
I've never tried it.
You said you've never tried it before. So it's very high on the nutritional scale. It's one of those things that you want to try to incorporate in your life as much as possible. Kale, collard greens, bok choy, spinach. We're all familiar with spinach, but it's not quite as high as kale. All those things you want to try to get them into your diet as much as possible. Once a day if you can, twice a day if possible. You know, make a big salad a big part of your day.
This can be eaten raw?
Kale can be eaten raw, although a lot of people find it a little bit bitter. I've gotten used to the taste. I love kale. I like that little bitter bite to it. There's another kind of kale called lacinato kale, or dinosaur kale, that's not quite as bitter, so if they want to use that.
Can I try it?
Sure, yeah, go right ahead.
Oh, it's not bad.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
Yeah. And with other things, you know, it adds a nice dimension and a nice flavor.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what are you going to cook for us today?
So I'm going to go ahead and make the cream first, and the way you do that is and I've done some things already ahead of time because we're limited to time today. So basically, the first thing that I start off doing is I'll saute some onions. And normally you would saute onions in a smaller, shorter pan, but since you're going to be using a bigger pan to work out with the kale, you would go ahead and saute the onions in the big pan, pour them into the blender, and then pour everything back in your pan. So I've already sauteed the onions for you. You want to do that until they're translucent. You can see they're kind of a clear look there. And we're dump that into the blender.
Just regular yellow onions?
Yeah, yellow onions. You can use red onions if you'd like, but yeah, these are yellow onions. The dahlias are really good because they're nice and sweet. And then we'll add the almond milk, which is another part of what makes it creamy.
Why almond milk?
This is a dairy-free recipe. Personally, I'm vegan. I don't try to turn everybody I meet into a vegan. And if they want to talk about that, I'm more than happy to. But this is a dairy-free dish, so almond milk is a good alternative milk. There's almond milk, rice milk, oat milk, hemp milk. There's all kinds of alternatives out there for people to use. Then we'll add some cashews, and this is another thing that will make it creamy. Most people, when they hear the word creamy, they think, oh, milk or dairy. It doesn't have to be like that. You can do it without those things. And then we'll add some nutritional yeast and some other spices, some onion powder, some nutmeg.
Is this a blend you've made yourself?
Yeah, a blend I made ahead of time, yep, for today's purposes. Now, nutritional yeast is another one of those things that a lot of people are not familiar with. It's exactly what it says it is. It's a yeast that's very nutritious. A lot of people use it on their popcorn for the buttery taste. It does have kind of a buttery taste to it. You can blend it in creams and cook with it. It's a very versatile yeast. Yeah, it's a nutritional yeast. I think they grow it on beets is how it's grown. It's not the kind of yeast you would make bread with. It's a different kind of yeast. Yeah, I don't think you can make beer with it either. So this is some miso.
That's interesting looking.
Miso is just a fermented bean paste, and typically it's soy, but you can also use garbanzo beans. Really, you could use any kind of beans. You're just fermenting the beans, but traditionally it is a soybean that they ferment. So we'll put all that in the blender there, and we'll blend this up. So we'll blend that up. Now this is a Vitamix. I love these things. These are a little bit on higher pricey side, but they're well worth it. They're guaranteed for 8 years. The warranties for 8 years. They're really. I make my daughter's baby food with this. She's a year and a half, so I was making her baby food from the time she was born with this. So it's really a really great machine. So we are kind of improvising today. I think we'll be okay. So we'll pour the cream back into the pot. Yeah, we're in good shape here.
Oh, wow. Excellent.
Pour the cream into the pan that you would have cooked the onions in. So it's okay if you left some onions behind when you were dumping out the onions. So pour that in there. Thank you, sir. Turn that down just a little bit. And then what we'll start doing is adding the kale into it. And what will happen is the kale will wilt down. And we'll get all the kale in there. And we'll start mixing that up.
How long does a dish like this usually take to prepare for someone?
Well, you know, the neat thing is you can make the different components ahead of time. If you're going to do it all at once in an evening, maybe 30 minutes, depending on how far you take it. Now, this is actually a jazzed up version of just a creamy kale. Creamy kale by itself would be really good, but I've jazzed it up a little bit, and I'm going to be adding some red cabbage and some black lentils. So the neat thing about it is the black lentils are already cooked. You want those already cooked because they won't be in here long enough to cook themselves. So you could do that ahead of time, stick them in a mason jar and have them already in the refrigerator. The next day, with your 5 or 10 minutes that you have in the kitchen, you could cut up your cabbage and have that ready.
Is there a difference between using beans that are in a can?
There's a difference. You're going to have more nutritional value from dry beans. And you also have to watch out because a lot of companies will add salt to the cans. And that's another thing that you have to watch out for in foods. You know, the challenge that we have with our diet these days is that most Americans consume what's called the standard American diet, or SAD for short. And part of that is processed foods. About 60% of that is processed foods. And those foods that are processed and packaged and put in cans and boxes and things like that typically have a lot of sodium. So you have to be real careful and look at the ingredients list and see how much sodium is in there. You usually want your sodium to match your calories. So if it's 150 calories per serving, you'd want it to be 150 milligrams of sodium or less.
In some respects, it's almost you're fighting an uphill battle with how busy people are as they look for these prepackaged foods.
And that's why they're so successful. Yep, that's why drive-through fast food restaurants are so successful. That's why the TV dinner became so successful, because of those challenges that people have with their time. And that's one of the things that we try to work with people on and show them how to be organized and deal with that short amount of time. Recipes that are really easy, nothing fancy. You know, we all like to watch Top Chop Chef or whatever that show is, Iron Chef and all those, and it's fun to watch, but really who's going to have time to make that kind of stuff?
Well, how about pre-portioning out and freezing? Do some of your dishes lend towards that?
I do, actually. I make a big batch of, this is one of my favorite dishes. I'll make a big batch of this and put it in mason jars and stick it in the refrigerator and have it every day for the next 3 or 4 days for lunch. So that's a good one. I'm a big fan of mason jars. My wife always teases me that half the refrigerator is my mason jars because I have everything in there. I can see what it is. It's not plastic, which lends itself to some other issues. So yeah, that's another thing you can do is make big batches and store them away for.
Well, what about, you said you're a vegan, what about some men out there that say, I need meat?
I will address that just briefly. The biggest challenge that most people have, or the biggest question I often get with veganism or vegetarianism even, is, well, where do you get your protein? Well, first of all, we don't need nearly as much protein as we've been led to believe. A lot of that does come from the meat industry. And also, and if you really, as examples, if you look around, if you look at the biggest animals on the planet, giraffe, elephants, rhinoceros, gorillas, what do they all have in common? They're vegetarian or they're vegan. And they're looking pretty good for themselves. So, you know, you don't need nearly as much, and you can get it from plant sources. You really can get it from plant sources. Beans are a good one. I'm a big fan of beans. Most people have a challenge with beans because of the old saying, you know, beans are good for your heart. The more you eat, the better your heart is. But ironically, the way to deal with that is to eat more beans. The more you eat, the more your body becomes accustomed to that. So move into it slowly, but the more you eat, the more it'll become acclimated to that. So we've got the cream in here, we've got the kale in here, we've got that cooking up. Let's go ahead and add some of the cabbage. Now I like to use raw cabbage. You can steam it if you want to, but I like to use the raw cabbage. And what that will do is add some more nutritional value, nice color to it. That purple against that green is really going to be a nice pop as far as color. And it adds a nice crunch.
And this is looking really good. Yeah, that I can tell you.
So add that in there. So yeah, so the standard American diet we were talking about, again, 60% of it is processed foods. About 40% are animal products, dairy and those kinds of things. And then only about 10% is fruits and vegetables. And this is really what I want people to focus on. Whether you want to be a vegan or a vegetarian or continue to be an herbivore and reduce the amount of meat that you eat, make your meals plant-centered or plant-oriented. Just increase that 10%. Because even that 10%, even though it seems small, it gets even smaller. Half of that is potatoes, half of that is French fries. So our standard American diet, again, is pretty sad.
Now, is there a transition period for someone who wants to do this, going from their normal diet and seeing, their intestinal tracts being different, and wanting to acclimate more to this?
Yeah, and it's as much physical as it is mental. You're going to do some mental dialogue with yourself as you're transitioning into a new lifestyle. For me, as a vegetarian, I said I could never be vegan. I love my eggs and my cheese, which I did, and still, do. If someone were to come to me and say, okay, cheese is okay now, I'd be great. But anyway, so some of it's mental, some of it is physical. So take it a little step at a time. Set your goals, basically. What I'm going to add here are the black lentils, and we'll talk a little bit about beans here in just a minute. But these are black lentils. Again, they're already cooked. Just going to mix those right in there. That's enough.
Are there different type of lentils?
There are, yeah. There's black, there's French lentils, which are a green lentil. There's orange, or they're called red lentils, but the color is orange.
Different flavors?
Different flavors. I like these because they have a little bit of a peppery taste to them. So I'm going to mix those right in there.
That's a nice texture.
It does, yeah. Yeah, that's why I wanted to add something else to make it pop just a little bit. So transition period, set your goals. For example, I tell my clients, what is your goal? What do you want to do? Maybe your goal is to decrease the amount of dairy in your diet. So you say, okay, this week I'm going to only consume dairy 3 days this week. And you make that your first goal. And you've reached that goal and you continue with that goal. Then you set another goal, okay, I'm only going to eat meat 4 days a week or 2 days a week. And so you set that as your goal. So you keep setting these goals, and eventually, you'll have acclimated this lifestyle into your life.
How about parents? You say you have a 1.5-year-old right now. Well, I have a 15-year-old and a 10-year-old.
Right.
And my challenge is I pick them up at dance or baseball.
Right.
And it's 7 o'clock, and we're hungry. We want to go to Zaxby's. We want to Moe's or whatever. How does that?
This is where organization comes into play. You have to have something ready when you get home, basically, or have something they can snack on that's healthy after, whether it's a self-made trail mix or some fruits and things like that, or smoothies. There's a number of things that you can have available for them to either tide them over until you get home and have a good dinner, or to be dinner on the way home. And if you're going to eat fast food on the way home, why not bring your dinner with you and eat it on the way home as well? So, and I have a 15-year-old as well, so I
understand the challenge. All right.
Yeah, it can be challenging because they want to eat what they want to eat, and they don't want to listen to their parents. And but again, he's also an athlete, and so I talk to him in those terms and say, okay, well, we're going to improve. One of my favorite vegans, Brendan Brazier from Canada, is a vegan, and when he got started, what he did was he looked at the workouts that other athletes were doing, and he realized that pretty much all the workouts were the same, or very similar. And so he said, what can I do to take myself to the next level, or think outside the box, as one of the folks here was talking about earlier. And so he decided to do it through nutrition. And surprisingly, he found that a lot of coaches and stuff weren't focused as much on nutrition. So he really took himself to another level and became a world-class athlete through just changing his diet.
One of the things I think people think of when I think of a vegan is, but I have a sweet tooth.
Right.
I want a cookie.
Yeah.
How do you satisfy that craving?
Not a problem at all. There are plenty of ways that you, just like we made this dish without dairy, you can make, there's a chocolate pudding that I make that doesn't have dairy in it. Most people are used to chocolate as that wrap-up thing you get at the convenience store that says Milky Way or Snickers on it, and really what they've done to that chocolate is add sugar and milk and those kinds of things. Real chocolate or untouched chocolate is actually pretty good for you. It's got some good antioxidants and things like that. So yeah, chocolate pudding. I have a carrot cashew spread that I make for my wife that she really likes a lot. It's just 3 ingredients: carrots, cashews, and apricots, all blended together and made into a spread that you can do with apples and stuff like that. So hopefully that's making people drool a little bit. So I think we're actually ready with this. If I have to do something first here.
All right. Are there any questions? Anyone have a question?
We talked yesterday, which was very enlightening, on health and the American diet, etc. And then you just kind of elaborated on how it helps you with the energy. How is that going to fly into, or your process on tying into the local business community and how we can use this phenomenal looking salad to make our day a better day?
Well, as I mentioned, the analogy I made earlier was think of it this way. Let's say your business is racing horses. What are you going to do to that horse? You're going to feed it properly. You're going to make sure it gets enough water and all those kinds of things. So you want to think of yourself as that racehorse. You know, you're investing in yourself. We talked earlier about investing in your pantry or your medicine cabinet. And if you have a business, it's even much more important because it's your business. You're the racehorse. And so you want to be properly nourished. You want to make sure you're getting enough water. It seems like a simple thing, but a lot of people that I talk to, when they say, I don't have any energy, the first thing I do is I ask them, well, how much water are you drinking? Are you drinking lots of coffee and sodas? And their answer is not very much, and yes, a lot. And so what that does is you're not getting enough water in your system, and you're drinking things that will deplete your body of water because they're diuretics. Coffees and things like that are diuretics. So you want to be sure that do the research. You're going to do research on other aspects of your business. Take the time. That missing part, that missing link of your business may be your nutrition in your own body. So do the research to find out what it takes to bring that to the next level as well. Yeah.
I remember at my business, my primary company, we had a lot of staff, and if you went into the refrigerator, it was amazing what you would find. There were all kinds of snack candies, crackers, cookies, donuts, everything but what we really should have, which are the vegetables and the fruit that'll help us and keep our associates moving along in the same track. Because at 2 o'clock when I walk into an office and somebody's kind of lounging, I know that I'm not getting 8 hours work for 8 hours pay.
Right.
So as a business owner and as a person who works in a business, I want to ensure that I always give 110%, and I expect nothing less from the people who work for me. So that, it looks like it's kind of a no-brainer for us, doesn't it?
Well, it is, and the thing I wanted to point out too is that being vegan or vegetarian doesn't automatically make you healthy. I've met plenty of junk food vegans and junk food vegetarians. Just because you make plants your focus doesn't mean that you're going to be healthy. Make the whole food plants your focus. For example, you could make donuts. They're going to be plant-based with the sugar and the flour, with its wheat flour, white flour, those kinds of things. It's not going to be healthy for you. And I've met vegetarians that were 320 pounds. Doesn't mean they're healthy. It's kind of like the word organic. People automatically assume that it says organic, that means it's healthy. But really, you can have organic potato chips. It doesn't mean they're healthy. It just means that they were grown organically. We're raising our daughter vegan as well, and she gets sesame seeds in her dinner pretty much every day in one form or fashion. But as far as the cost, a lot of people talk about, oh, it's very expensive to eat healthy. If you do it the right way, it really isn't. And again, you've got to think of it as an investment. You're investing in yourself, you're investing in your health, and in the long run, that's going to pay off. So if you look at the things that you buy, if you buy things in bulk, like the beans and the rice and those kinds of things, you're going to save money. If you buy locally, you're going to save money. Products that are coming from a local source. If you buy seasonally, you're going to save money that way. So there's lots of ways that you can eat healthy and save money. Certainly, I could go out and spend $300-400 if I wanted to, but you don't have to.
Well, we're so global now. I see now grapes are coming in from Chile.
Right.
A lot of produce from Chile.
Right.
Do we have to be concerned with where it's coming from?
Well, only from an organic standpoint. There's a thing called the Dirty Dozen list of foods that you should really stress and try to get organically, and imported grapes are one of those. You want to be sure that any grapes that you're getting that are imported are organic. And there's several aspects of organic. It's not just your health, it's also you're supporting farmers that don't put the pesticides and herbicides into the environment. So there's several different pieces to that puzzle.
Another question too, true or false, and is that, like, I've heard that bananas, because they have a thick skin, they don't have to be organic.
Yeah, they're not on the Dirty Dozen list. So from a personal health standpoint, that would be true. But again, there's other pieces of that puzzle. You know, you want to support organic whenever you can, because you're supporting those farmers that don't put that stuff. And those pesticides and herbicides don't just kill the bad bugs; they kill the good bugs and stuff as well. And so there's lots of pieces to that puzzle. Yeah.
Any comments on what we're eating? And you can talk with your mouth full if that's okay.
Under a lot in your cooking.
I do. I use my Vitamix almost every day.
Okay. So is it important, if you're really going to move into this way of life, to invest in a good blender, or?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And again, I don't make any money from Vitamix, but I would say that Vitamix is one of the best ones out there. And you can find them in lots of different places. Costco carries them. QVC, you can catch them on QVC and pay the monthly thing with them if that's an issue. But yeah, it's a really good blender. There's a couple of other ones out there, but this is really my favorite. One of the things about the Vitamix is that the lid is domed. It doesn't sit flat across the top, so you get the full use of the whole jar, which some blenders you don't. You get this tamping rod, which is really good if you're making things that are really thick. It will go all the way down just right to where the blades are. So yeah, I would say invest in a good blender. And again, I like that word invest. You're investing in yourself and investing in something.
And so what else is it good for?
Smoothies, you can make soup with it. I mean, there's a broad range of ways that you can. And the thing about smoothies as opposed to juice is you are getting the fiber. You're getting the fiber from the plants.
Don't forget margaritas.
Margaritas, yeah, you margaritas in there too.
Vegan margaritas.
Do you have any more questions for Michael? Well, everyone, please give me a big hand for Michael. Thank you very much.